So Yitzi, this year, Parshat Tetzaveh, Shabbat Zachor, just before Purim, as we do every year, we try to connect the Parsha to Purim itself and also to what goes on in our day-to-day life. And this year we discussed Mizbe'ach HaZahav, the inside altar that we find, the small altar that we find inside the Ulam. We discussed what is it doing in this week's Parasha.
And as we saw, it shows up at the end of everything. When we're done, when we already spoke about preparing and setting up the Mishkan and the 7 days that come after all that's done, then the Mizbe'ach HaZahav shows up. And we learned from this how there are some very deep ideas about this Mizbe'ach HaZahav, which, also deeply connect to Purim.
Exactly, so deep that this is the deepest sense that we have, in the sense that the reach that comes out of the Mizbe'ach is what connects to our neshama. As we discussed, this is something on a different level. The purpose of the Mizbe'ach HaZahav is a different type of kli in the Mishkan. It had a totally different purpose than what you think. It's not connected at all to the Shulchan Menorah, as we usually in our minds try to connect those three. It's something separate, and as you said, we connected it to Purim because there's so many connections over here to Purim, and of course to our day-to-day life, what's going on with us. Hope you enjoy it. Take a look. New week, new Parsha, Parshat Tetzaveh, Shabbat Zachor, the week before Purim, the week of Purim. And as we do every year, we'll try to connect the Parsha that we read this week together with Purim that's upon us, and of course also together with what's going on in our day-to-day life. And what I want to talk about this week is a very interesting fact, because Yitzi, if I ask you, what kelim were there in the Mishkan? What tools were there in the Mishkan? You'll tell me, well, inside the Mishkan, there was the Aron, HaKodesh, where Luchot HaBrit were. Of course, that's the most holiest place, the center of the Mishkan. But then next to it, over the other side of the Parochot, you find the Shulchan Menorah and Mizbe'ach. And those three kelim always go together. We always find them together. However, that's not true, because when you look at this week's Parsha, we see how last week, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe to build the Aron HaKodesh with the Luchot, then build the Shulchan and Menorah, then build the whole Mishkan. Then this week starts off with continuing into doing the other things of the Mishkan, the clothes of the Kohanim, preparing the Kohanim themselves to work in the Mishkan. And after all that is done, after all this preparation, after HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanding Moshe all these things, only then does HaKadosh Baruch Hu command Moshe to build a Mizbe'ach HaZahav, to build this little altar inside the Ulam, next to the Menorah and the Shulchan, in order to put on it Torah, to put on it essence every single day. And when you see it here at the end of this week's Parasha, just over there, after everything is done, we even have these psukim that conclude everything, saying this is the purpose of the Mishkan, to bring holiness into the world, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring Kedusha into this world. Only after that we have Mizbe'ach HaZahav. So what is it doing here? Why is it so separated from everything else? What is actually the purpose of Mizbe'ach HaZahav? What is it all about?
Yeah, this totally seems like, oh wait, I forgot one more thing, because we really seem to have finished the whole story and suddenly this pops in there at the end. What's going on here? We have to truly understand, I think, the essence of the Mizbe'ach HaZahav and learn the psukim inside to truly understand the meaning of this and why it's positioned here. But let's start from the end. If something is out of everything else, especially when talking about the Mishkan, everything in the Mishkan is in complete order. There's every single detail has its place. This is there, this is it, this is the size. And then something is suddenly out of order. That's no coincidence. Why is something out of order? So sometimes something is out of place because it was forgotten. It's missing from the puzzle, which is obviously not the case here. Here it's intentionally outside. Why would I create a structure that's all organized and there's a system and everything is so clear, but then there's something that's not part of that system? And I think maybe, and I think we can see this within the psukim, when you create a system and it's all organized, you would sometimes create something outside of that system because it's a backdoor. It's a way to bypass the system. It's saying that there is a system and there's an organized system, and there's nothing more organized than the system of the Mishkan. But sometimes there's that backdoor. And if we think of it in terms as we relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu sometimes as a king and sometimes as a father. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is both our father and the king. And the king sets up his kingdom and he sets up his palace, and there are rules, and you have to go through this room and through that room, and you have to meet this person before, and only at the end you can meet the king, and it's all very, very structured. But then he adds a back door to his palace, and he tells his son, when you really want to get to me and you're in a hurry and you really need me, go to that door over there. There's a key hidden under the carpet. You can use that key and come right in. And I think in a certain sense, the Ktoret and Mizbe'ach HaZahav are that back door, are that bypass. And we see this in every single word and every single detail of the story here. Let's look inside. Mizbach HaZahav is described in a very unique way. It ends with saying that Mizbach HaZahav Kodesh Kodashim Hu LaHashem. Very interesting. We've seen Kodesh LaHashem, which is the tzitz that the Kohen Gadol puts on his head, which is supposed to help him focus everything towards God. We don't need to focus this towards God. By definition, not only is it Kodesh, Kodesh Kodashim LaHashem. You know where we see Kodesh Kodashim? Besides for talking about the location Kodesh Kodashim, the other Mizbe'ach is called Kodesh Kodashim after the entire process of the entire 7 days of preparing the Kohanim and doing the Korbanot. When you're done with the whole system, then it's called Kodesh Kodashim. Not this. Mizbach HaZahav, in the moment it's created, in the moment it's commanded, Kodesh Kodashim Hu LaHashem. It already belongs right inside there. But we also see about how it's set up. We see it's set up outside of the Parasha. It's outside of the Kodesh Kodashim. But when we spoke about the Menorah and the Shulchan, they're described as being outside of that separation. Not here. Here it says that it's facing Lifnei HaParochet, Lifnei HaKaporet, Asher Yivayed Lechasham. It's talking about where it's placed. Just say it's in the bigger room. It's in the room outside of Kodesh HaKodashim. No, it's in that room facing the Parochet, which is facing the Kaporet, which is the place where I meet you. It's as if there is no separation. That separation, what separates everything else when talking about the Mizbe'ach sees right through that. And I think this is also what we see with the Ketoret itself. Because what is the Ketoret? The Ketoret is a korban of smell. And if we think about it, all of the korban, all of them, we have the concept of that they are lereach nichoach ishel Hashem. What is the result? After you do the whole ceremony and you do this and you do that, at the end it becomes what? A smell. Lereach nichoach ishel Hashem. So in a certain way, you can think of all the korbanot as something that takes a process to get to that smell, whereas here we just go right to it. We bypass it all. We start with the smell. We go right into the deepest point, to the highest point without any process. Maybe that's why it's outside all of this. It's not only outside the description of the Mishkan, also in terms of timing, it's outside, right? We have the Tamid of the morning and the Tamid of Ben Arba'im, but we have just before that and just after that, that's when the sun needs that back door, when we're not supposed to be there. Maybe that's why in the psukim here, we suddenly speak about Yom Kippur. We suddenly talk about the fact that there's one day of the year, that there's a special, unique day, and that's connected to Mizbach HaZahav. Why? Because that day is all about that back door. It's that day where we say, even though, we weren't perfect and everything went wrong, there's this one day where suddenly we're able to bypass everything and go right inside. That's what the Mizbach HaZahav is all about. That's what the Ketoret is all about. And maybe this is why also the Ketoret represents, later on in Parshat Korach, we see where when we want to see who's chosen, we use the Ketoret. Because the Ketoret represents, you're my son. You have that back door. You have that special, you were chosen beyond the whole system that's going on around here. And beyond that, the Ketoret is the one that's used to stop the plague. It's again, right now, what should be is a plague. That's what should be. That's what's happening. No, there's a back door. We pull that out when we don't have any other options left, when we can't really go through the system, when we're lost and we need to cry out to our Father. That's when we use that back door. That's when Hashem says, I know I built all of this system, but I'm already from the start telling you the secret. Under the carpet there is a key with a back door. That back door, that key is Mizbach HaZahav.
Very good, very good. I like that metaphor of being a back door for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, accepting our offering, accepting our prayers, because really when you look at Mizbach HaZahav, as we said, there's this understanding, this concept in our minds that Mizbach HaZahav was there together with the Shulchan and Menorah, and those three together were the kelim inside the ulam, inside that room over there, outside Kodesh HaKadoshim. However, really, when you look in the Torah itself, it is very, very clear that there are two different things. There's the Shulchan and Menorah, which is one thing, and then there's Mizbach HaZahav, which is something else. They happen to be in the same room. The Shulchan and Menorah have to be there in that room, but the Mizbach HaZahav has to be across the Aron, the Kaporet, like you were saying, on the other side of the Parochet, as a place that we can get to every single day, like you were saying. First thing in the morning, last thing in the afternoon, that's the highest place we can reach. That's where we go with the Samim, with the Ketoret, in order to offer it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And like you also were saying, it's all about the smell. It's so much so about the smell that in order to make that samim, in order to make those essence, you have to really, really grind them dak until like the smallest tiny insy-bincy little piece and make a really, really grinded mixture of essence in order to create those samim. And then from that you bring the reach nichoach. From that you lehalot ketoret, you maktirim ketoret. From that you create that smell, that special smell. And we've discussed this in the past, but it's worth also mentioning again this idea this concept of what a smell is, of what reach is. Why is reach so important? It starts off by Noach bringing a korban, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu smelling that reach nichoach, and through that expressing his mercy onto this world, his rachamim onto this world. And also here, the whole idea behind the Ktoret is the kapara, is the mercifulness that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for us after we sin and we atone. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu accepts it and we get a fresh start. This is the idea behind this concept of reach nichoach, like you were saying. But also more than that, the sense of reach, the sense of smelling, is very unique for itself. It's very different than the other senses. Of course, as we know again from Kabbalah, from the holy books, that the reach, that the sense of smell, didn't sin in the Chet Adam Rishon, in the first sin of Adam Rishon. That was the only sense that didn't participate in that sin. And therefore, this sense is what connects to something even deeper, as the Gemara says, that the reach is what connects to the neshama. The reach is for the neshama. Or in other words, again, as we always say, the beautiful Hebrew language, the word reach, resh yud chet in Hebrew, is very, very similar to the word ruach, to the word spirit, to our spirit, to where it connects to, because it's the same, the reach and the ruach. That's what the reach is there for. The reach connects to the soul, to the neshama, to the spirit, to the ruach. This is what the reach nichoach is about. It's that sense that sits over there on the edge of the body, on the edge of the materialistic world, but allows the ruach to go up, the ruach to come in, allows this connection to the deeper level, to the higher level of our reality, of our world. This is the purpose of this Torah Samim, of this Mizbe'ach. This is why it sits over there. This is why when HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands it, it's so separated from all the other kelim, not like in Parashat Vayakel, where Moshe actually creates the kelim, and not like in Parashat Kudei, where Moshe sets up the Mishkan, where we see the Mizbe'ach together with the Shulchan and the Menorah. Here it's separated, but also as we see over there, that the Mizbe'ach, when it was created, Moshe also in the same Parsha created the Samim, the Ktoret, the essence, unlike the Shulchan, where it was created, and we don't know about the lechem, the bread that was brought on the Shulchan. We only see later in Kudei, it was brought together with Shulchan. It doesn't say it was created at the same time. The same thing also with the Menorah. We see the Menorah created. We don't see the oil of the Menorah created. We see the oil being brought with the Menorah later on, but we don't see it being created. But here with the Mizbe'ach was created together with the essence, together with the Ktoret. This is what it's about. It's about, as you were saying, creating this backdoor, this shortcut, in order to get directly to the reach nichoach leHashem, to this inner level, this higher connection that we have in our beings of this reach, of the spirit, of the ruach. This is what Mizbe'ach HaZahav is about. That's why it was done first thing in the morning, last thing every day. And that's why we see next week's Parsha, if anybody creates it and tries to smell it for his own purpose, chayav karet, that's the worst punishment a person can get, because this Mizbe'ach and these essence have a purpose for them, because this is our special connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is our secret, as you were saying. It's that little key under the mat by the door, and it shouldn't be used for anything else.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you can't not see the connection here to Purim, because there's a famous pasuk in Purim, which is part of the essence of all of Purim, is when Esther, in that conversation with Mordechai about should she go, should she not go, and she says, I will go, v'asher avadti, she talks about she will go asher lo kadat. Dat means, we see that word a lot in the Megillah, means the law, the rule, the way things are supposed to be. That's not how you go to the king. But now I'm going to be approaching the king, and as we know in the Megillah, the king is the king Achashverosh, but it's the king HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the same time. I don't deserve it. I may not be going down the right path. Am Yisrael may be completely messed up, partying with Haman and Achashverosh and all intermarried. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be using now that back door. I'm going to be going in even though I shouldn't and I couldn't, but asher lo kadat, I'm going to find my way into there. And that's what Purim is all about. It's not because we deserved it. It's not because we were, everything was beautiful. No, it's not. We see how the Megillah starts. We see what Chazal tell us about this situation Am Yisrael we're in. Purim is there because we always, even in the deepest, darkest places, we always still have that back door. And that's what it's about. Even in that darkness, even when all options are lost, we still have that Ktoret. We still have that Mizbe'ach HaZahav. We still have that other bypass, Sher Lo Kadat, not by the rules, not the way it should be, but it's our Father and we're His Son, and we have always somehow that way to reach Him.
Very good, very good. And there's one thing that Esther asks from Am Yisrael to do, from Mordechai to do. Just before she goes into the king, she says to Mordechai, Lech knos et kol haYehudim, go get all the Jewish people together in order for me to be able to go into the king, in order for me to use that back door. This is something that's crucial in order to use that back door. We know also from the Torah the Samim with the Chelbena that had this terrible smell to it, but it went in them together because this unity is what brings us closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what allows us to approach HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we've said several times for the past week, it's okay to argue. You should have arguments. Part of our life is machloket. The Gemara Gemara is built on arguments. That's how you get to where you need to get. That's how you develop as a society. However, do not lose these boundaries around you. Do not lose this understanding that it's all one big nation and we're all part of one nation, and these arguments are being held within this frame of a nation and chas v'chalila, not anything else. Of course, again, we have to recognize the situation here in Eretz Yisrael also the past few weeks with these terrible acts of terror where families lost not only one but actually two brothers, different families. Obviously, there's something here in the air. There's something here in the senses going on. There's something being yelled at us about this brotherly bond, about this brotherhood that is lacking, that is missing. So, Emir Hashem, out of this Purim that's upon us, we should all seek this unity again, this Lech Knosset Kol HaYehudim. Again, it's okay to argue, and some arguments have to be made in order to push society forward, in order to get to a better place than where we are today. However, remember this frame and approach these arguments through this bond, through this brotherhood. But we're out of time, so we'll have to end here.
Just one more thing we can't not say when we're talking about Purim and talking about the Ktoret and talking about Reah. We talk in Purim about Chayav Inish LeBisume. The word used, bisum, is from bosim, is perfume, is what we use, its sense of smell. And also, we know the Gemara in Chulin, which says, who was Mordechai? Maridachi. He was the Ktoret. Mordechai was the Ktoret. Bisamin, there are so many deep connections to the Ktoret and to Purim. Food for thought during your Suda this year in Purim.
Exactly. As we always say, there's so much more to talk about this, but we're really out of time. We have to end here, otherwise no one will watch our videos because they'll be too long. So we'll just remind the viewers what we discussed the past couple of years. Last year, we discussed the beginning of the Parsha, the Nel Tamid. Why exactly is it there? It should be part of the Menorah. Why is it separated from the Menorah? Also, 2 years ago, we talked about the Kohanim, what they were wearing. The majority of this Parsha is about their clothes and the Kohanim themselves. In Judaism, do we care about the outside or do we care about the inside? What's going on over there? And how does this connect to silly Purim costumes that people wear every single year? Why is that important too? We'll link those videos. And as usual, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like it on YouTube, comment below on YouTube, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Help us grow it. And if you think somebody needs to hear it, feel free to share it around. And Koyach Yitzi.
Koyach Tuvia, Shabbat Shalom, and Purim Sameach.
Shabbat Shalom, Purim Sameach, and Hashem, we'll talk again next week.